Welcome, action fans, and thanks for joining us for another edition of All 90s Action All the Time, as we reach the halfway point of our 90s Stallone season. I'm your host, Scott Murphy, and on today's podcast, we are talking about The Specialist. Now, as always, to help me in this endeavor, I have my regular co-host, Bloodhound Picks co-host, screenwriter, and definitely a man who knows how to control his explosions. It's Mr. Craig Jaheim.
Glad to be here.
Now, before we head into this one, as always, a little bit of background detail. The Specialist was released on October the 7th, 1994. It was directed by Luis Loza, whose notable credits include the Tom Berenger action film Sniper and the Jennifer Lopez horror film Anaconda. And it was based on a series of novels written by John Shirley, who was a novelist and screenwriter who actually wrote the screenplay for The Crow. So an interesting fact about him. Yeah. I think he's kind of loosely based on those novels. The lead character's name's not even the same. So who knows how close to any of the stories it was. But anyway, the screenplay was written by Alexandra Serros, whose only other credit on IMDb is for her screenplay for Point of No Return, which was the Bridget Fonda-led La Femme Nikita remake. In terms of reviews, it currently holds a 5.6 out of 10. It doesn't have a Metacritic score for some reason. 7% on Rotten Tomatoes based on 29 reviews. That's some good stuff right there. And a 2.4 on Letterboxd. It was also nominated for 5 Razzies, of which it won 2. For Worst Actress for Sharon Stone and Worst Screen Couple for Sharon Stone and Sylvester Stallone. And because we've talked about this before, the Razzies don't always get it right. It tied with Tom Cruise and Brad Pitt in Interview with a Vampire. So, fuck you, Razzies. However, despite its critical slating and its Razzies winning, it made $170.4 million at the global box office off a $45 million budget, making it, wait for it, Stallone's second biggest hit at the box office in the 1990s, only behind Cliffhanger. And it was also the 16th biggest film of 1994, sandwiched in between Maverick at 15th and Legend of the Fall at 17th.
Oh.
So, The Specialist, Craig. Had you seen The Specialist before?
So I know we talked about this outside of the podcast. So all the rest of Stallone I've seen multiple times, but yeah, this is one that I know I've seen, and even watching it this time, I just can't remember anything. So that's the point.
It's quite forgettable.
Is that I could even have documentation and video camera of me watching it from, years and years ago and be like, so I'm there. But yeah, I just, nothing, it just went in one ear or and out the other.
Yeah. I kind of feel the same. So I remember, when I was probably in my teens that I definitely caught this on television, and I feel like I might have seen parts of it on television. I feel like I've only seen it once all the way through, and then before this, and then I might have seen parts of it over the years on telly while kind of channel hopping, like the opening and the ending kind of feel familiar. So I was like, maybe I've kind of caught that over the years a couple of times, but I feel like I've only before, watching it again for this, I think I've only actually seen it all the way through the one time. I know it. I don't remember renting it out, so I'm pretty sure it was just on telly.
Yeah, even the so I watched it last night, and when I woke up this morning, I was still with my notes and everything. What was the order of the scene? So he's listening to her for a long time. He's just kind of watching her for a while.
Yes, this movie, this movie's called The Specialist, but it could be called Phone Sex, the movie.
Yeah.
Given how much time is, given to that particular activity. I was just we just have breathy phone calls between Stallone and Stone. I mean, part of the reason this was made is just because that's fun to say, Stallone and Stone.
Yeah. Yeah, it was just, oh yeah, Sharon Stone, she came off because Basic Instinct was before, right? I'm guessing.
Yes. So
okay.
Basic Instinct was 1992. Like, basically, she made Basic Instinct in 1992, and then Sliver came out in 1993, and then this came out in 1994.
Okay. So yeah. So it's just, she's sexy and stuff, and then Stallone is muscles, so let's just put them together in a very anticlimactic shower scene that you build up to this whole movie for just like yawn.
Yeah, I feel like, I do feel like a lot of the box office is to do, sex sells. And I feel like, reading about it, most of the promotional material around it was all around like, there's this big sex scene, the big steamy shower sex scene between Stallone and Stone. And that seemed it worked as a marketing campaign. It worked because people went to see this. I was really surprised to find out that this movie made more money, like at the time of release, made more money at the global box office than Demolition Man.
Yeah, which is by far way more, superior.
I mean, I'm sure Demolition Man has made more money than this movie now because, like, it was probably, because I feel like people genuinely don't remember this movie, where obviously, Demolition Man has become this, like, cult classic with this kind of large following.
Oh, exactly.
So it is amazing. Like, I feel like people, if you were to ask people, like, what were Stallone's 90s movies, like, even in terms of, like, the bad ones as well, I think people would say, like, Cliffhanger and Demolition Man first.
Yes.
And then they might say something like Judge Dredd, I think. Or they might say Rocky 5 because they're aware of the series, so they're aware that the fifth one came out. And even though it's the worst one, people still kind of watch it when doing the kind of franchise rewatch or whatever.
Yeah.
So like, I'm not even sure if this is fifth. I'm not even sure if it's ahead of like Assassins or Daylight either, which I'm not sure. But
I would even argue that his really bad ones, like Stop or My Mom Will Shoot, they might remember more just because of or Oscar, because of how bad they were.
Possibly. And then I definitely would have said, ahead of this, probably, ahead of this, Judge Dredd, obviously Copland is, again, it was kind of critically acclaimed, and I think that's generally well remembered because it was Stone doing something very different. So, the fact that this was his second biggest hit in the box office, I mean, it just shows the kind of power of like what a sex symbol Sharon Stone was at the time, I think. Yeah. More than anything.
Which I know, I actually, watching it, I looked her up because I felt like I haven't seen her in a long time. And I looked and she's been doing stuff constantly, but for some reason in my head, I was like, whatever happened to Sharon Stone? Because she was, if you had her in a movie, she was like person, you really highlighted, where I haven't seen that in a while.
Yeah, I think she kind of stepped down to more kind of supporting roles and more, I think she's done, in more recent years, she's done a lot of TV. Because I feel like she was in, one of the Law and Orders or one of the CSIs or one of those types of shows. I can't remember which, but I feel like, I think she has done a bunch of stuff like that. Cause I'm aware that she has kind of worked regularly. It's just that she's just nowhere near the kind of massive star that she was in the 90s, post 90s, her kind of career took a dip, Yeah. I remember, I know it's a long time ago now, it's probably 17, 18 years ago, but by the time in the early 2000s where she was the villain in Catwoman, falling off a cliff. Yeah. It was Law and Order Special, she was in Law and Order Special Victims Unit for a while.
Okay. There we go.
So there we go.
And that was the one with Vincent D'Onofrio.
No, Special Victims Unit's the one with Ice-T.
Oh yes, and Christopher Maloney and
that's the one, and yes,
the one that's still going on.
It's not. It's not. Yeah. Oh no, you're right. It is the one. Oh no, no, it's the one with Christopher Maloney and Richard Belzer and Marissa Hargitay. But this show is going to be. Yeah. this is why the episodes go long, man. As it gets, we're not starting talking about the film. We're just going over the history of Law and Order.
Which is probably way more. All of those episodes that run by like a paint by numbers, set up scripting is probably still more memorable than this movie.
In the criminal justice system. No. So let's cut to the movie. Cut to the movie. So we open with a title card and some super Bondy music. Yeah. And it's not a surprise that the music is super Bondy because it's Mr. John Barry as the composer on this film. But then we cut to Bogota, Colombia. Tell us what happens in Bogota, Colombia.
Well, there are two, are they CIA? I want to say, yeah.
Apparently, yes. Yeah. They're CIA.
CIA agents that are played by Sylvester Stallone and James Woods, and they're very serious, and they're setting up Stallone and is setting up the C4 along this bridge because he's James Woods is the trigger man and Stallone is the setup man. I can't remember he's the one who sets up the bomb, and because they're going to be basically killing this drug cartel.
The rigger. He's the rigger. I'm the trigger. You're the rigger. That's what the phrase is. It's not very memorable, but yeah. The recurring comment that we'll probably have throughout this whole thing. Very memorable. So he's setting up the thing that happens with it. Yeah. Anyway.
And so they're going to kill this, basically this drug kingpin when he's driving over the bridge. And as they're watching it happen, they see Stallone sees that there's a little girl in the back seat of the car. And obviously he has morals and he wants to abort the mission, but it's no longer his call because James Woods is the trigger man and he's the one that says, well, we're going to keep doing it. And they argue, and Stallone then runs to basically, deactivate the bombs before it happens, but he's too late, causing him to jump into the water as it explodes and then explodes the truck, killing the kingpin and killing the girl.
Not before they get like a kind of like glance, Stallone and the little girl kind of lock eyes briefly to give us a big emotional moment, or what the movie thinks is going to be.
Because the girl doesn't even she's like pretty blank slate on her face. She's just like, oh, there's a person down there. Whatever.
Yeah. It's like, wow. She just looks confused. And because Stallone can't really emote with his face, he also just looks kind of like,
And so then Stallone, and they come out, and Woods then starts beating up Stallone when Stallone says he's gonna report them, and that he's just that Woods just gets his kicks, killing the people. It's not even, he doesn't have any morals, he doesn't have a code, it's not about even these missions, it's that he's just psychotic and wants to blow people up, and that's what he enjoys doing. And so they get into kind of a fight, and then Stallone beats up Woods after that and tells him he's going to report both of them. And
he shouts in his face, you're dead in agency. You're going to be as dead as those people on that bridge. And that's after, delivering some ground and pound on him,
Yeah. Slamming his face into like rocks and all that stuff. But then we have that nice jump to present day, which would be...
I did want to mention one fun fact from this opening scene. So, I mean, I get it, like this time in the 90s, actual Colombia would have been dangerous to film in, but covering for the Colombian jungle is Rock Island, Tennessee. Is where the scene was filmed.
So kind of the same.
Kind of the same. Yeah, kind of the same. I'm sure Tennessee it looks exactly the same as South America. It does I'm sure if I went to the Rock Island, Tennessee, and I went to the Amazon, it'd be like basically the same.
Yeah, they're in the same, hemisphere of the West, the same Western hemisphere.
Yeah. It's close enough.
And I realized that it does that whole, which I never thought about until I saw somebody, I think they posted about it or whatever, of the jump to present day doesn't really necessarily always work, because that scene is supposed to take place in 1984, I think.
Correct.
Yes, and jumping to
10 years have passed.
Yeah. Yep, to 1994, and then obviously Stallone looks the exact same. They didn't really try and make them look older, or either him or James Woods.
No,
they 10 years.
No, they didn't try to make. Well, I mean, like, it kind of would have made more sense if they trying to make them look slightly, maybe try and make them look slightly younger in the area. I don't know how they would, but yeah, that's true. I mean, like, in terms of aging, it's not the silliest thing in this movie. So we'll talk about aging more. Yeah.
And we get that nice kind of cabaret singer. It's in Miami, and she doesn't even have a microphone or anything. But she's like, I don't even know what's going on. There's kind of a party going on.
There's kind of a party going on, because like it's one of those kind of movie shorthand things. It's like like you have certain shots and stuff, to establish where you are in the States. So, so the audience at home, who maybe have never been to America, like myself, so the audience at home, because we're all idiots, know we're in Miami. There, of course, everything will be drenched in neon, and Latino music will be playing. So I was like, Miami. I see.
Yeah. And there's pools and,
exactly. Now I know. I didn't know before, like, could have been set anywhere, but like, I definitely know I'm in Miami now, so that's cool.
That's what we need to do, is just make a movie set to look like that, and then have it be like Minnesota or somewhere, you just change it all up.
Yeah, you just have like this one neon glowing restaurant with like Latino music, and then you pan out in this like Green Bay, Wisconsin. You're like, oh dear. Okay. So, what's happening in Miami?
So in Miami, that looks like, somebody who watched Scarface a couple of times.
Or episodes of Miami Vice, basically.
Yes. We get to see, our hero, I guess, which there's a bunch of information. Apparently, if you go onto the Wikipedia, there's a whole plot and story behind this buildup, but we don't really get any of that. So just going based off of the movie itself, we find him with his computer going to a payphone, plugging it in, hooking up to the internet, 1994 internet, to some forum that says, hi lonely, call this number. And he calls and he talks to a voice, which is very clearly Sharon Stone. That doesn't need to be spoiled or anything, who wants him who they've been talking for some time, apparently. They've established a rapport and kind of attraction to each other's voices. And she wants him to kill 3 people who killed her parents when she was a child. And he still doesn't want to do it. He said, go to the law, or you got to go about it another way. My skill set doesn't really work with these type of killings. So he's a hitman now. We can kind of establish that, and he's one that still has a code and sense of that he only do certain hits that he wants to do, I guess. But he keeps talking to her because of her voice, and he likes it.
And she wants a bomber because bullets aren't precise.
Yeah, I guess.
I mean, could have hired a sniper, maybe? I don't know.
Yeah.
But, bombs famously precise, because, like, that's the whole thing of the movie. That's kind of the whole gimmick of the movie, that he does controlled explosions that only kind of kill the target. Actually, another kind of thing of, like, things that are happening at the time, in terms of other movies. 1994, year of the bomb, because like there was this movie, there was Speed, and there was also that Jeff Bridges movie, Blown Away.
Oh yeah, with Tommy Lee Jones.
Yeah. Tommy Lee Jones, Jeff Bridges. Yeah. So, Bombs, 1994. That's what it was all about.
Wasn't that, when did the Oklahoma City bombing begin?
I think that was either the same year or the year after?
It was, I'm looking at 1995.
Oh, okay. 95.
So there were bombs on the brain that led up to that.
Okay.
But yeah, so apparently because of his guilt, which is never really, it's talked about obviously in the script, but you don't really see it, the guilt of killing the child. Yes.
Yeah, you never really feel it as a viewer of kind of like, oh, this man seems so racked with guilt. It's just like other people mention, oh, you feel guilty, don't you? He kind of like agrees, sort of. That's it, Yeah, but like I did put like in my notes like phone call with Stone, who's playing a character called Mae Monroe, to say no to a hit job, and then I've just put seems like we've skipped a few steps because it seems like there's been like at least 2 other phone calls before this where they've built a rapport in a relationship, and he's already declined the offer, but he's phoning again to decline the offer again, which makes him seem kind of weird and desperate, but yeah, okay.
Yeah, he just keeps saying, because they even admit that they just like each other's voices. Yes. And then it's even made clear later on that he's been following her to see if she's telling the truth, or to see if she's a viable enough client.
Yeah. So I found... Right. Like I said, I couldn't really remember this movie because, I'd just seen it on TV once years ago, and I just couldn't really remember other than that there was explosions involved and there was like the big sex shower scene. And, that's really it. But watching this film again, the next scene confused me, and I wanted to know if it also confused you. So, what happens in the next scene is Stallone is now playing the character Ray Quick. So Ray is stalking May. And Stallone and Stone, Ray and May, is that so? It's just things that are fun to say in this movie, and that's what it's all about. So he goes to stalk her. He's now stalking her, seeing what she's up to. And she goes to a graveside, obviously the graveside of her parents, and we get like a flashback of her parents being murdered, and we get this kind of narration that seems just like narration, and he's got a kind of earpiece in his ear as if he has maybe put a bug on her, and he's kind of listening out for something. But then it is established that is not the case. We are not listening to narration. We are listening to the recorded phone conversations that Stallone has got on like his mini disc or whatever it is, like his Walkman or whatever. So it's real weird.
I agree. It played because I thought originally. Later on, it's, established more, but I thought the same thing. I was like, so does she know he's there and that she's just, they have to keep their distance for whatever reason, protocol, and she's just talking knowing that he's listening? And then,
that's kind of what I thought. I was like, is she just like talking out loud or like what's going on here? Or is this narration we're just hearing as an audience and he's listening out for something else? Then it's kind of established that no, while stalking her, he also listens to their previous phone calls, which he's recorded, which isn't creepy at all.
No, I mean, he does everything listening to those phone calls. He works out. He's just, most of the first half of the movie is him just like walking around staring at her or listening to those phone calls.
Yes, we get lots of exciting listening back to recorded phone calls action as he kind of piningly looks on at a distance to everything that Sharon Stone's character May is doing.
Yeah.
Or May stroke Adrian. We'll get into like how she has like an alias. So yeah, I've just realized that like her alias is Adrian. Like they really missed a beat there where like they could have. I suppose like Stallone's character knows her and May, so we couldn't really have Stallone shouting Adrian at some point in the movie.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I feel like we should have. But anyway, moving on. We cut to more kind of Miami action. Like we're at a big party. There's more neon. There's more Latino music playing, and we're introduced to the kind of villains of the piece as well.
Which May basically tells him that, well, if you're not going to help me, I'm just going to do it myself. And I know I have a plan, or I know I'm going to be able to get close to him or stuff like that. And he's saying, and the whole time he keeps saying, no, stay away. Even when he agrees to do it, he's like, you need to stay away to make this work. I don't know. But she doesn't listen and goes to the party.
Yeah. And then, yeah, so like our main villains, I mean like Joe who's played by Rod Steiger. He's only really briefly introduced, but we're more kind of fully introduced to, Tommy, as he's called, and then who's played by Eric Roberts, and also we are reintroduced to James Wood character Ned Trent.
Yes.
And they're having like a little argument about like him getting paid. Like Ned Trent wants his money.
Yeah. I like there's the whole part where so he gives them some money. And he goes, what is this? This is a tip. This isn't what you owe me. And so this is a tip for her, or like, would you pay her? And he like throws one of the waitresses this stack of, all this money. And then she brings it right back, apparently.
Well, yeah, like she brings it right back because, Eric Roberts' character, just kind of beckons her back. Just kind of goes like, get because back with that.
Yeah. He gets what he wants. He makes that clear too.
Yeah, he always gets what he wants. Big Eric Roberts. As I mentioned before we started recording, so Eric Roberts' character and Rod Steiger's character, both Latino characters apparently. We'll get on to Rod Steiger's performance later on, but it seems weird that they, particularly because this was directed by a Hispanic director. He comes from Peru. It's weird that they cast these actors, notes for Hollywood, just because somebody has an enthusiastic love for fake tan does not mean they are Hispanic, Latino, whatever, term you want to use.
But realizing this, that they also directed Anaconda, they have that whole John Voight does that really absurd accent, and that takes place.
That is also that is an accent as well.
Yeah.
Yes, that is true.
Mr.
Loza doesn't seem to care about authentic. I mean, despite his own heritage, doesn't seem to care about authentic Latin American accents or South. I can't even remember what John Voight's supposed to be. He's supposed to be from like Panama or something, or like.
It's like Panama or Paraguay.
Paraguay. I think you're right. I think it might be supposed to be Paraguayan, which is, he is.
That's a rough one.
That's, I recently, not that long ago, I rewatched that, and it is kind of fun in a kind of stupid way. One of the things I noted about that when rewatching it, I was like, that's a real easy paycheck for Eric Stoltz. He just spent like half the movie in bed.
I know.
So it's just like, I'm getting paid for this? Sure, whatever.
Yeah. See, and that, with like that accent, the John Voight one, I think you end up, you give it more leeway because, it's a movie about a giant anaconda. And
I think because the movie's ridiculous and his performance is so ridiculous, you do give it much more leeway than the abomination in this movie, which we will talk more about.
So Tomei, he sees Adrian / May, and obviously because he gets what he wants, he decides to walk over there and flirt with her and make sure that she knows he gets what he wants. Like, he's very forceful about all of it. So there's no like wooing or anything. He's just like, you're going to come with me. Yeah. And she tries to like play flirty with him in a way, I guess, of like,
kind of
like she's trying to play, coy or play, give him something to make him interested more, but she doesn't really. I don't know. It's awkward.
Yeah. It's one of those weird things where, like, and this is true of Sharon Stone's performance for most of the movie. Yeah. It's like she is trying to play coy and mysterious, but she just comes over as bored and passive aggressive.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I mean, I think maybe she was possibly, after, previously starring in Basic Instinct and Sliver, and, maybe she was just kind of bored of this femme fatale role, so it was like, she just didn't care, because she does feel like she's phoning it in completely.
Yeah. Stallone's bad too, but I think, her out of everyone. And a lot of the cast, for at least we'll talk about more, feel like at some point they're kind of phoning it in, except James Woods later on. But but she's kind of like the top one out of it. Like, she's just like there collecting the paycheck and reading the lines type of thing.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, then we get a couple of scenes to try and kind of ground Stallone's character really quick and kind of enter into his life. We get like one random scene that doesn't really need to be there. A couple of random scenes that don't really need to be there. There's one random scene where it's just like, it cuts them for like all of like a minute, where he's just sitting around in his secret warehouse bunker, looking broody with his cat. And then that's all that happens there. And then we get this like kind of random scene. Now, obviously Stallone's kind of famous for like doing like rewrites in movies and kind of influencing like the productions of movies, trying to get his way on things. And I feel like what happens kind of next is maybe one of those scenes, because in the course of the movie, because he is a bomb expert and everything, he's just like setting off bombs. So he's basically just pulling the trigger on bombs, like pressing the button to let the explosions go off. So we don't really need an action man in this role.
Yeah.
So this scene where he like beats up some random punks on the bus just feels like very much inserted to kind of suit Stallone and be like, look, he's an action guy. He can kick ass.
Yeah. I'll agree. It feels like they're just trying to make things more exciting. And so it's like these punks are, they're messing with a young girl, obviously. And then he offers his seat, or Stallone offers, or I guess they'll say is Ray offers his seat to, a woman who's coming onto the bus to sit down, and she's obviously looks tired and just got off work or whatever it may be. And, one of the punks takes the seat, and then is not going to give it up. So he hands her his sunglasses, says, hold on to these for a second, and then beats up the three men, kicking one of them out the window, and gets his sunglasses back, which has me go back to because he's supposed to be the specialist, this hitman and all that, but he's never discreet. Like, he's very clearly in a lot of the scenes. He doesn't try and hide his face or anything. Like, if anybody tried to do any sort of investigation, like, oh, yeah, he was there. just showing his face around, you know.
Yeah, that is very true. Yeah, he's just kind of kick about. He's not very stealthy, like, you know, particularly in the many stalking scenes that we get. He's not particularly stealthy or anything. He's not like hiding behind things or like kind of using any sort of cover or anything. There's times where he's about 6 feet away from her, you know, that you're like, I mean, that is terrible. If you're like, I mean, what kind of CIA training is that? You know, like if you were trailing a suspect like that, you know, they could just be like, you realize I can see, you're like across the street from me. I can see you, right? You know?
I mean, it feels like I don't know, and it's, you know, this whole movie takes itself so seriously, and so do most of the cast, but it feels like something that would be parodied in a sketch, in like sketch comedy, where, you know, somebody's saying, "Oh, we could see you." No, you can't. You know, they're pretending to hide behind a bush or whatever it is, type of thing.
Yeah. So like you say, like part of the problem of the movie is like apart from, well, the many issues in terms of the script, the acting, the pacing, whatever. One of the issues is this kind of level of self-seriousness and how the movie seems to think it is this kind of body heat style neo-noir with some added action. Yeah. And it's like, you're not though, right? You realize you're not? No, obviously not.
Yeah, and I know we talked before that there really isn't, you could change up the cast, which I'm sure you'll want to get into, but there really isn't like a good version of this film. Whereas so many of the other ones we've talked about, well, not the past couple weeks because those are decent, but it's been like, well, if you do this or this or this, maybe something genuinely good could be made out of it. And this one, yeah. I think it would be the same type of, you know, kind of blah movie that is.
Yeah. Like, because it would still have the same script issues. It would still have probably the same pacing issues. It would still have the same kind of tonal issues of being like, you know, you should have made it how, you know, in the same way, with the same spirit, you made Anaconda. You're like, you know, this is a trashy film. It knows it's a trashy film. You know, like, you should have leaned into it more of like the trashy erotic thriller elements, the trashy action elements, and like, yeah, I don't think it would make it a better movie. Like if it had like more gratuitous explosions and nudity, you know, but like it might make it like a more fun movie.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So, after that, we cut to, Eric Roberts to May, giving, May stroke Adrian. I think he knows her as Adrian, whatever.
Yeah.
The grand tour of Miami, which she previously stated that she had lived in Miami, and, but because it had changed, so much in that time, he needs to give her a tour. And also, so we talked earlier about aging. We should have mentioned this at the graveyard scene. There is a flashback to her parents being murdered. So when she was like 9 years old, maybe 9 years old. So the character is, this is supposed to be like 16 years later. So the character is supposed to be in her early 20s. She's like, it seems.
Okay.
Sharon Stone at the time was 36. And Eric Roberts at the time was 38. And yet, in the flashbacks, Eric Roberts, 16 years previously, so even further back, 16 years previously, exact same, looks exact same. So
they should have just cast, you know, somebody to look like him but younger. That's what it feels, you know, or something at least. Yeah,
but like, even that, you know, even it's still problematic because Eric Roberts and Sharon Stone are so close in age.
Yeah.
So still, you know, it's like, oh, so he killed her parents when she was a kid, and they clearly look of a similar age.
Yeah.
That's so like, I mean, in my kind of fan theory for this film, Eric Roberts' character, vampire.
Yeah. Who can only be, that's why it needs to be explosions. It can't be a gun or anything.
Yeah. Because famously, vampires.
Explosions are the only way to kill a vampire. I think it's in Bram Stoker's Dracula or something.
Is it? It's in one of them.
Yeah.
It's established in the mythology somewhere.
Yeah.
So there we go. To me, is a vampire. Maybe like that whole family, maybe the Leon family, are just all vampires.
Yeah.
Who have been running Miami crime for the previous 200 years or something.
There you go.
So yeah, it's there's many silly things in this film, but I definitely find that one of the silliest. Just because you constantly think about it, you're just like, what? He killed her parents when she was a kid. No, that doesn't add up at all. I mean, I'm definitely there's no suspension of disbelief here. Yeah.
And that's, I don't know. So the trouble with this movie too is that there's just up until, I even want to say that, there is some explosions before and some hits laid out, but up until the hour mark, this thing just feels like it's a series of scenes of Ray stalking May/Adrian, who is now with Tommy or Eric Roberts' character to try and get, I don't know. It just feels like we're just watching a series of scenes to lead up to a movie.
Well, I mean, yes, and I think again part of the problem is the tonal thing of everybody seems to be thinking this is some sort of gritty film, but it doesn't feel like a gritty film. And then it feels like a lot of people are phoning in performances. Generally, it's the 90s. Of course you want Eric Roberts as your sleazy action villain. But he's not even, you don't even get full Eric Roberts. He's not, he's a bit of a sleazeball, but he's definitely not one of Eric Roberts' most fun, sleaziest performances. And he just feels very dialed in, very kind of bored. And we even get not long after this, we get there's a scene where Tommy and me are making out in a back of a car, and then Stallone just walks by, and then Tommy comes out and he's raging, and there's a big kind of confrontation because and this is the one scene they have together. Again, it feels kind of shoehorned in just so they can have a scene together. And then, Eric Roberts' character pulls out a knife, and, Stallone just looks bored. He's just whatever. And, Eric Roberts isn't really leaning into it either. So it feels again, there's just this kind of weird lack of tension, and even these kind of violent moments where somebody, a man is holding a knife to another man's eye, and yet you're just kind of I'm sure he'll be fine. He'll probably just walk away. Oh, look, he's just walked away. Cool.
Yeah. Yeah, because that whole thing is him saying, oh, you're looking at her, or do you want me, or whatever. And, well, that's kind of the point that's supposed to turn Ray or Stallone into being okay, I'm going to finally do this job.
Yeah.
For you. Which it comes out way later too. It feels too long for him to finally agree to do this job too. I don't know. Or unless it just feels long when I was watching it. But it wasn't. It could have been 5 minutes. I would have been like, man, I've been watching this thing for 50 minutes now. What is going on?
And again, it just feels there's this phone call where Ray phones up me, and he's explaining, his rules, and this is his code that he kind of lives by, these kind of 3 rules that he's giving, for all his missions, all his jobs, whatever. And then again, it just doesn't feel kind of grounded in anything. It's just there's other, even in kind of silly movies, cause Because I was thinking about something like the Transporter. It's like, you know, Jason Statham's character, Frank, he does seem like a man who lives by a certain code, you know, and he does, like, his rules feel like they matter, even though it's silly, and of course he breaks them all because, you know, like, because, you know, the plot wouldn't happen otherwise. But, like, these just feel like arbitrary, like, it's just like, well, I don't, you know, it doesn't feel like kind of like these are his strict rules, and we know this character and we know he lives by these rules, you know, like this is how he works. You know, it doesn't feel like that. It just feels like he's just saying things.
Because it seems like they should have given us a scene where we witness him doing another job, or you know, something like that. Because even talking about Transporter, that did where we saw another job that he did before, so we can kind of go, oh, I get it. So that's him doing it when he's like doing his official rules. And then now we're watching him do this next job.
And his official rules kind of unravel.
Yeah.
So like, I feel like there should have been maybe a scene like that. Maybe even instead of the Columbia thing. Like, you know, just I think kind of establishing like who this guy is.
Yeah. No, I agree.
And I also like, I think, you know, one of the entertaining things about this movie is there is moments of unintentional hilarity. So when Ray phones up to accept the job, like, May is fully clothed.
Yeah.
But then, during the course of the conversation, she is suddenly in her underwear.
Yeah. Well, because even there's points when he's listening to her conversation, and then I guess it's either flashes of something she's doing, or it's him imagining her undressing. There's that whole scene that pops up, again, it's just a slew of scenes of this, so I don't even know if we can go beat by beat with it, because they're all the same. But I remember sitting there watching going, I think it's when he's doing his like Tai Chi thing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is going way too long. It just doesn't, it's supposed to be sexy, I guess, but it's not. Weird. It's just like coming off pointless and weird. Like he's just imagining her, she's talking in his ear, and he's just imagining her breathing.
Yeah, I think
like,
that
rubbing her leg.
Yeah. Like, again, it's kind of confusing as to whether this is happening in reality, or is he's just imagining this is happening while he's doing his Tai Chi and doing press ups and stuff, and like having a little training montage. So yeah, again, it's a very funny scene because like he has this little training montage where he's doing some Tai Chi. He's of course shirtless, showing off his his biceps and his ripped abs and all.
He made sure to get all oiled too.
Yes, he was very much went the pro wrestling route. He is all tanned up. He's all baby oiled up. Like he's got all. So he is absolutely glistening off the screen. And and then that's intercut with like May like wandering around her flat, just in a kind of silky nightgown in her underwear, like whatever, doing sexy things or what's supposed to be sexy things. And I think it is supposed to just be like this is in his imagination. He's while listening to the phone recordings, like you said, he seems to always be listening to these phone recordings, which makes him seem all sorts of creepy, to be honest. But so he's doing that, and then she's just kind of wandering around. You don't even like see her face or anything. She's just kind of wandering around. It's done. It's kind of shot in that kind of moody blue of, again, it's, it's supposed to be that kind of neo-noir kind of body heat thing.
Yeah.
But it doesn't really come off. Like all the kind of eroticism it doesn't feel very erotic.
Yeah. So getting into the plot, actually kind of moving forward for this type of movie. He agrees to...
Like, actually, I've double checked my notes. Like, that scene does happen slightly after, the first hit.
Okay. Yeah, because, I don't know, again.
It happens just after.
Okay. So he agrees to do it. Tomei, he gets her, even though that's, again, with some timeline issue things, if they've been seeing each other for a while or something, but he gets her an apartment too. But, But so he agrees to do it, and he goes to it's supposed to be a club, but it's also a brothel.
A brothel, I think. Yeah, it's supposed to be a brothel.
And so the guy, one of the three men that were involved in killing her parents, goes to kind of check out
I don't think his character name is ever mentioned, but I checked the credits. His character is called Charlie, and it's played by an actor called Mario Ernesto Sanchez. So there's no some Latino actors.
Okay, good. Yeah. And so he was just with a prostitute, and he makes some comment about he's going to see her later, and then there's one who is kind of complaining to him about something at some point. That's the hard part. Trying to
no. He's not. He just goes no. So you're thinking about a later scene.
Okay.
So like Charlie just goes to the brothel owner.
Yeah.
And basically says, "Oh, you're skimming off the top," kind of thing, and like takes him out. That's all he does. He's not with him. He's not. Yes, you're thinking of a later interaction of a later hit.
Okay, because I know there's the young woman who's like yelling at him at some point, and then she's gonna open the door. Stallone says, "Oh, let me buy you a drink."
Yeah. So like that young woman's yelling about payment to the brothel owner, not the kind of henchman guy. There's another interaction between a prostitute and a henchman later on in the movie. It gets very confusing, but continue.
So he goes into this office, and during that time, Ray slips one of these bombs kind of in between the door. Again, he's not even that discreet. He's very clearly standing there. Nobody apparently knows that he's doing this, but he slips the bomb so that when the door opens, it'll go off. And then Charlie he kills the brothel owner because they think he's skimming off the top, and that September was missing out of the book, which would suggest that he was doing that. And so the young woman is going to go in there, but Stallone grabs her and says, "Well, I'll buy you a drink." So she doesn't open the door. And then I think they're just kind of sitting there watching it happen. And then, he opens the door. It blows up to where it's only him. It's only Charlie. It erupts. Everybody else is fine, but, they're shooken up, and they tells the woman that she should go find, a new job or different line of work or something. And then he just walks away. And again, nobody's like, "Hey, that guy."
Again, that's very true. That guy who was kind of looking suspicious by that door and very unsurreptitiously placed something by that door. No, he just walks away scot-free. And it's weird because there's a bunch of explosions in this movie, and a lot of them don't feel particularly exciting. Although I would say this scene is entertaining because of, again, unintentional hilarity, of just the way Charlie is flown back into a fish tank, and you can see his head in the fish tank. I found that very funny. And then also music by John Barry. You get like a great kind of Bond music sting.
Yeah. No, I mean, the explosions are fun in the sense because it will show each one will show the bodies, kind of fly up or fly certain ways. They make sure to show these kind of the dummies fly around the explosions.
Yeah. But which doesn't make them, you're not like kind of, that's cool. You're just kind of like, well, that's funny.
Yeah. I agree. Like that's all it is. And it's supposed to seem more intense, but it's not. And it's like everything else where, the lead up to the explosions, the lead up to the sex scene, it's on paper, like explosions and sex. That sounds exciting. And then it's all kind of yawn worthy.
Oh, I know. And then again, immediately, as soon as something exciting happens, we're like, we immediately cool down because it's like, oh, this exciting thing's happened. The first hit has happened. Woohoo, the plot has kicked off. And then we get like, a series of meetings.
Yeah.
Between the guy, between the villains. And in between the two meetings that we had, there's two meeting scenes real close together, and in between those meeting scenes we get the Stallone training montage, and you're just like, yeah, okay, this feels like padding. Like, we definitely could have cut out one of the meeting scenes. Like, the first meeting scene where it's just the three of them, that is Tomei, Ned Trent, and Joe. They could have cut that one out, and then just had the one where they meet with the police chief, and that's, just have that one. We don't, the other one's just kind of like padding, so we can just have another confrontation of Ned and Tomei. Like, they really don't like each other. We've already established that in the party scene earlier on. We don't really need to establish this further, but sure, we're doing this now. Okay.
Yeah, and so this is even before we get to see James Woods. So he,
yes,
in a good.
Like, I should mention, right? So, before we did this podcast, you watched the movie last night. Yes. You sent me a message on Twitter. You DM me to say, like, I'm about 40 minutes into this movie. It feels kind of dull and clunky, and like most people seem to be phoning in performances, including the villains. Now, I was kind of confused by this because I was like, I'm fairly sure, like, having looked at some clips from this movie before rewatching it, that, James Woods is acting his socks off. And as much as I loathe to give any credit to James Woods nowadays, due to being, look it up on the internet. He's a problematic dude. Just, look it up, in your own time. Anyway, so I was kind of like, he's like, he's probably overacting, in a couple of, clips that I watched on YouTube before rewatching it or whatever. But in the end, I kind of agreed with you because, like, kind of in the first 40 minutes of the movie, he's not really overacting. Yeah. It's only once we get to this big scene, when he meets the police bomb squad who, it turns out, are working with the gangsters because Big Joe Leon, he owns the police. He, apparently Miami PD is totally paid off by him, so, like, he can just order investigations and shit.
And every single officer is completely fine with that.
Yes.
It's like, oh, okay, this drug cartel's, henchman is coming in and telling us what to do. Okay, yeah, we'll listen to him. And they treat him like a regular too, like just one of their own cops. That's why it feels like James Woods for a bit was supposed to be like just a cop or something. I don't know, because that's what he feels like for a bit. Like, oh, he's not actually working for the cartel. He's a dirty police officer, but he's not. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I suppose. Yeah. I suppose there's a version of that like, and I think, like, I feel like when we have, before we get to the bomb squad scene,
which is one of the best,
which is one of the most fun scenes in the movie, where James Woods is really acting his socks off. Like, so we have more properly introduced Rod Steiger's character, Joe Leon. At this point, after having these couple of meetings with the police chief and all that. Now, I mean, his accent is just really something else.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is one of the worst. I mean, I don't even, like, it is an absolute, I don't even know where it's supposed to come from. It's just like, it's not identifiable as any accent from any Latin American country. It's just like, I mean, it makes some of the accents in Scarface look, toned down. It's just, it's an and again, I'm not sure why he was cast. I'm not sure after they heard that accent why they continued to be like, yeah, okay, Rod, you're doing great.
Yeah. He must have
it's a choice.
Yeah, a great agent at that time.
He must have. Like, I mean, he's not a terrible, he's in the Heat of the Night and, a bunch of other stuff where he's good, like, it's not like he's a terrible actor, but in this, he's just, and his performance is just weird.
Yeah.
Like, cause there is so much in the movie where he looks like he is not only bored, but literally on the brink of just being like somebody like coming in and being like, it's time for your nap, Rod. You know, like, and then other times just not so much chewing the scenery as, you know, devouring it with a massive fork.
Yeah.
It's truly staggering. So, and his performance gets more over the top as the movie goes on as well. And his accent gets more outrageous and bizarre as the movie goes on too.
Well, and he just uses, like, it seems like he uses the same word because, you know, there's that whole thing of like people getting into an accent, they'll use a, specific phrase or whatever it may be to start them out.
Yeah.
And, so it'll be like the same couple, like, you don't know who you whatever. And he uses those same couple words in almost every sentence. And it's like, oh, okay. So you're that's like how you're getting into that accent that is general South America, Central America. It's like,
and that might sound bad, but it's no worse than, Rod Steiger. Like you say, it's like, you don't know, you know, like,
yeah,
it's like, that no real person from any Latin or South American, wherever your accent is supposed to be coming from, like, it's not, no. And as we kind of discussed off air, I thought, like, I was trying to, like, recast the movie, which you kind of mentioned. I think that's a good time to bring it up.
Yeah.
So, like, my recasting of the movie was Joe would be played by Naked Gun villain and also Khan himself, Ricardo Montalban. And Eric Roberts' character would be played by Andy Garcia. I don't know I was looking up what Andy Garcia was doing in 1994. He made When a Man Loves a Woman. But yeah, I could maybe fit this in, I don't know. And then because, like, as I said, I don't feel like this movie actually needs, like, an action hero because it's just a guy standing at the sidelines setting off explosions for most of the movie, apart from, like, two scenes. The scene where he kicks the punk's ass on the bus, which feels just very much kind of put there for Stallone, and a scene later on where he's kicking out some ass. You don't really need an action hero, so, like, you know, we could have had, like, the type of actor who starred in these types of films and stuff like that, like Michael Douglas or Richard Gere, both of which were Sharon Stone's co-stars in other movies.
Yeah.
That's my recast. I would just, you know, like, she's terrible in the movie, but, like, Sharon Stone can stay as her character. And James Woods can still be James Woods.
Because of this scene coming up.
Yeah, because of this scene specifically.
When he goes to the bomb squad, and there is one cop that is not having it, doesn't want to, you know, listen to some mobster or cartel's lackey, because he's a cop. And
like, I don't know, like, because I'm not sure about how this all works. So Joe has definitely paid off the police chief, but it's not fully established how much the bomb squad know about. Like, they know that this other guy is coming in, but it's never established if they know that he works for these mobsters, because the bomb squad guy says, I don't trust any ex so-and-so. So, like, maybe the bomb squad don't actually know that they're working for criminals, but the police chief have just told them that this ex-CIA guy is coming on as an advisor for this investigation.
That makes more sense.
I mean, just reading between the lines and kind of making my own movie, but
yeah, your better movie with a better cast. But I mean, this little part's great because he's saying that he doesn't want to listen to, when you already stated with not listening to any ex whoever, and then you have James Woods doing I guess I don't know what I'm paraphrasing, obviously, but it's like, I don't know what I'm talking about, I just know. And he's like, pick up these little pieces. This right here is plastic explosive, could blow up the this whole room and then everything else, but I don't know what I'm talking about. And he's making that bomb as it keeps saying this. He's making like this detonator in a pen, and yeah. Oh, well, I don't know what I'm talking about. I just need a transmitter. Oh, wait, what about right here? He like turns it on.
Yeah, it's a great scene, and he says everything with such relish, and like it's the way, like, the bomb squad guy, like the captain of the bomb squad, or like the leader of the bomb squad, or whatever, like says at some point, like, "Oh, you're crazy," and then he just like with such relish and glee just says, "I'm the craziest person you'll ever meet." Yeah. It's just like, even if you did think this was like some guy who's like been put on as an advisor because he's some sort of expert, I mean, you probably report that of being like, this guy, I mean, he literally just built a bomb in the office. And he literally told us he was the craziest person we'll ever meet, and he kind of terrifies us. Like, where did you get this expert from?
Yeah. And not only that, he started the bomb's timer. Until there was 1 second left, and then decided to turn it off. He was going to let us explode.
He literally told us to our faces he did not care if this whole thing is what he seems like he has maybe a death wish. Like, I'm not sure I want to work with this fella.
Yeah.
Oh dear. So, yeah.
But during that scene, he also, this is, I guess, foreshadowing, but not great. He sees they're running through the pictures at the party, and to kind of do all the background checks and see who might be connected to the bombings. And there's on the screen is a picture of May, Sharon Stone, and it's clear that Ned knows who she is, but it doesn't establish the relationship or anything at all. But he knows her because he makes some comment about, "I'll handle the background stuff."
He seems like kind of, I don't know, because like, I don't know, it's never established if he's actually seen her like wandering about the place, or like they don't seem to see each other at the party. So at this point, they've not had an interaction, and he seems surprised to see her. So it seems like she's just somebody from his past or something. Like maybe they had a romantic relationship. Yeah. I don't know. Like it just seems, it didn't seem, like what is established later didn't seem like, oh, it's kind of like, okay, I guess. Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
But anyway, after some more kind of, well, we get some like, Tomei takes, May back to his place, we get some more padding and stuff like that. But, then it is the second hit, which, again, I can see why you got him confused, because there's a henchman involved, a prostitute involved, but yes, so there's a henchman. The henchman in this is credited as a Strong Arm. That's the name of this character. And proving that they knew other Latino actors, so played by a guy called Sergio Dore Jr. They were around. So anyway, once again.
And this one is where, since they know about the bombs, I don't know, I guess could be more fun than it actually is, but where he thinks anything could be a bomb, going all the way to his car and everything.
That's right. So he's very tentative, pressing the down on the elevator. He briefly thinks about taking the stairs, but he's like, no, I'd probably rather blow up than take the stairs. But the bomb's not in the elevator. And then he goes down to his car, and he has a look under his car, and he finds a bomb. He finds a grouping of dynamite under his car, and he's like, I found a bomb. But he still feels like there might be a second bomb, so he gets a valet to start his car, and then starts his car okay. So no bomb there. So it's like, so he's got one bomb, there's no bomb there, so he thinks he's safe. But is he safe, Craig?
No, because when he goes to get I guess when you're exiting, the car parking lot and you press your code to release the gate, when he presses his code, it does a countdown and says bye-bye. So that's where the bomb was at.
Indeed.
And it blows out at him and then sends him in his chair flying in the air.
Like a flying a very Bond moment as well. Like it's an ejector seat or something. It just shoots directly up in the air. He did seem very slow to react. There's a countdown of 10 seconds.
Yeah.
And I feel like he had enough time to put the car into reverse.
Yeah, because he realizes it to a good, with 7-8 seconds left. Within the first couple seconds, he's like,
yeah, within the first couple of seconds, when it counts down to about 8, he's like, ah, shit, this is a bomb. So he could have hit the, hit full throttle and gone forward, or even tried to reverse or something, try and fly through the gate, or either, fly back into reverse, back into the car park, whatever. But no, he just sits in. So again, it kind of lacks tension because you're just he's just watching this timer go down. Yeah. It's I mean, definitely you could do something in these final moments that you have, but you've just chosen to sit and watch the timer until it counts down to 0 and says, that's it.
Yeah, it even says bye-bye. It gives a couple extra seconds.
Yeah. So you're just watching it being well, this guy's an idiot. He's not doing anything.
It's like, I don't know, one of those Austin Powers spoofs. Yeah, just like a James Bond kind of thing, or, where, they're rolling towards the guy with the roller and he is yelling. I forgot. I think in the original Austin Powers, and they're saying, get out of the way.
Yeah.
That's what it feels like.
Yeah, it does feel like the kind of steamroller scene there. Yeah. And then again, this, so sometimes information is given too early, sometimes it's given too late, whatever. We've had missing scenes at the start, or, what could have established the relationship between Ray and May, and, what could establish, Ray's, what happened in the 10 years in between or whatever. But we get suddenly we get how all these characters know shit. And again, maybe it's the specifics of the explosive device that's in the ticket machine or whatever that means that Ned suddenly knows it's Ray, but he suddenly seems to know it's Ray. And then we find out that he doesn't suddenly seem to know it's Ray. This is not something that has dawned upon him. He has always known that it's Ray, because it turns out he has instructed May to hire Ray so he can trap Ray and get revenge on Ray. It seems, it just seems like there's shit missing. And it's okay, you've made this overly convoluted plot that is just full of what now? Okay, I guess. This is what's happening now. All these characters always knew each other. Of course they did. I guess that was not seeded at all, but I'll go with it, I suppose.
Yeah. That's why, I don't know. I think going back, it would have worked better if you didn't have the relationship between Woods and Stallone in the beginning, or just establish Stallone's, rules and all of that, and just I don't know, because adding their relationship thing, as you already said, it makes it convolute, or I don't know, it's trying to make some big kind of conning twist element, but then that doesn't even work out that well because they throw that away. And
yeah, it does feel like they could have streamlined the plot in terms of they could have had a very similar plot, but they could have basically taken it because the gangsters don't do anything to the plot.
Yeah.
Joe and Tommy don't actually really do anything to the plot other than there is the backstory of Tommy is killed May's parents. But you don't even really need to have that. You could have just had James Woods is kicked out of the CIA. He then somehow, maybe becomes, maybe he hides his CIA record or does something, and then he becomes a shitty, dirty cop.
Yeah.
And then he wants his revenge on Ray, and then maybe May, becomes involved in a crime, and he says like, oh well, you could go down for 5 years, but but otherwise, like you could get away scot-free if you do this thing for me. And you could have set it up like that, and he's just like blackmailing her or something.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like you definitely could have streamlined it. It's so convoluted the way they've done it.
Yeah, I agree. I mean,
but again, we're just remaking this film for no reason.
Because at like the hour, whenever they meet, finally, at the hour 10, I think you were saying.
It's like, about, yes. I looked at the time, so like when they actually meet and he frisks her, that was 1 hour and 9 minutes.
Yeah.
And this movie is an hour and 45.
Yeah. And by that point, then it feels like it jumps to a different type of movie, because then all of the, people except Joe that she, associates with the killing of her parents are dead. So it's like,
yes,
the mission
all the
is
people
already,
that she has, a vendetta against are, yeah. But we should probably, we should probably, cover the death, the very anticlimactic death of Tomei.
Yeah, who's supposed to be the big villain, kind of. And yeah, I mean, it is, very anticlimactic, and it just, again, he's supposed to be this kind of the big villain, and instead you're just watching him at the pool, and Stallone is then watching him, and he puts on the bomb is within a saucer for a coffee cup. They switches, and it goes, and that's supposed to go to him as he's going to his sauna or changing room in this kind of pool.
Yeah. And where he gets his, yes. I mean, it just feels, again, it's unintentionally hilarious because it just feels kind of so ridiculous so he's hidden this bomb within, and, it's like, it's not just any coffee cup. It's like one of those little espresso cups, just enough for the, one shot coffee. And, and then May comes into the changing room just to reveal her name, because she said at the start of the film she wanted to be like, that was the last thing that he ever hears and sees of like her face, and then revealing her real name because she's been Adrian to him up until this point. And but then it's just, and you don't even like, unlike the other ones where you get the kind of entertainingness of like the body being flung backwards or whatever, or like something like, kind of looking fun and silly. That doesn't even happen. You just get out like a flash of his face, a flash of her face going, May Monroe. And then he's dead. It's like, and then his limp body and her limp body are like carted out the changing room. Yeah.
And this too is supposed to make you feel some emotion, which it doesn't. But Ray sees her walking into the room. And so he's running to try and get in there to be like, no, don't, obviously you're going to blow up. And so you think, because they've established this relationship, it's going to be another one of those things. Like, I don't know, the movie, like Vertigo or whatever, where, he thinks she's dead and that becomes this guilt, but she's not actually dead. If anybody hasn't seen Vertigo, I just spoiled that for you. But
that's true. Yeah. But one of the key problems of that, even at the time of the release of the movie, was one of the most kind of promoted scenes from the movie was this hot shower sex scene, which guess what? Hasn't happened yet. So we know for a fact, even when the movie was released, even if you'd just seen a trailer of the movie at the time, that the character of May, not dead.
Yeah. And he's not even that heartbroken, I don't know. Because the whole thing, it's just since they've only been talking through like these little, phone calls that weren't even that coded. I mean, again, he's not a great hitman in that sense, but it just,
they just don't have any real chemistry.
Yeah.
And they do feel like they're having kind of two separate conversations at times, you know, just being like, he's rambling on and she's rambling on, like, she's rambling on about her backstory and all this kind of stuff, and he's just kind of being like, no, I'm not gonna take the job. Actually, no, I'm gonna take the job. I like your face. Yeah, I like your face too. Like, you know, like, I don't know if it's, they just don't have any chemistry.
Yeah. And so obviously then Ned also thinks she's dead during it. And, now this is kind of where Joe starts going into like switching gears, and he's doing his scene chewing because his son's dead.
Oh yeah, no, like he's full. This is his best bit of. This is Rod Steiger's best bit of scenery chewing when he is just chewing out Ned, or like they always refer to him as Trent. So like when he's just chewing out Trent, as Trent kind of smugly pretends to care that Tomei is dead without kind of bursting into laughter, which he almost seems to do.
And then he even comes back saying, you know, Joe's, you know, all upset about him, being like, well, he wasn't listening. You know? Yeah.
I mean, like, and you're just, again, it's such a hilarious scene because you've got James Woods doing this kind of smirky thing where he's just like, you know, kind of just about on the brink of laughter, and then you've got Rod Steiger who's just shouting and screaming in this indecipherable Latin American accent where he's just, you don't know there's a boss around here, I do not know the boss around here. Like, yeah, Rod, okay, that's some acting,
He's got the In the Heat of the Night Academy Award on his shelf. He doesn't need it.
Yeah. And then, I mean, like, again, we get kind of more, we get some more kind of padding where like, Ray, breaks into May's house because he's a creepy stalker. Like we've established. He does not have boundaries, and he's got a weird fixation on this woman. And again, it just comes over more weird. Yeah. Of just because of how it's kind of portrayed, of like him constantly listening to these phone recordings and the way he kind of stalks her. I mean, and I know it's supposed to be one of those kind of femme fatale relationships where, you know, like the guy is just drawn into the web of this woman by her sexuality and just like, and all that kind of thing. But I think partly because like they have no chemistry and partly because like a lot of those noirs, you can kind of see the thread of it, of like how the guy has become intoxicated and how they slowly, you know, become more subservient to this woman, you know, or whatever, you know, in the kind of classic noirs. But in this, it's just like, I don't know. He seems kind of creepy and stalkery from the very beginning. He doesn't seem like he's been drawn in by anything. He's just like, well, I like the look of your legs, so yeah.
Yeah. He's rubbing, there's that whole scene where he's like rubbing her sheets.
Yeah.
And I don't,
Now, Ray Quick is a creepy guy. Yeah. The hero of our movie, people.
Yeah. And so, so now Trent, or Ned Trent, is like, okay, well, I'm going to get him finally. He does the fake ad to which Stallone calls and answers, and the woman's trying to, so the only reason for the police cop, or the women officers, is to either make some sort of relationship comments or something.
You know, the hilarious thing about this, right, is that the female officer in this scene who talks to Ray and kind of, who's in a couple of scenes, she's in the bomb squad scene earlier, and she's in the kind of, a bit near the end and stuff like that. So she pops up, you know, prominently in at least 3 scenes, right?
Yeah.
Now, the hooker who turned up in the brothel scene earlier, she gets a character name. Tina, the one who Ray saves.
Yeah.
She gets a character named Tina. This character, played by the actress, I'm going to say the pronunciation is Mate Valan, but I'm not 100% sure. Any listeners who want to correct my pronunciation, I'm happy to listen. Her character, just ordnance expert.
Okay.
Didn't get a character name.
Yeah. No, I realized, because kept going, is she going to play kind of a bigger part or something? Because they keep showing us her. I turn to her and but all she has is that line that's basically where he's reading, does this sound like a good, personal ad?
Yeah.
And she's like, oh, that's the story of my life, or whatever she says. And that's it.
Yeah, and then she featured prominently in this scene as well, and she's getting some lines in this scene. But like, yeah, again, she seems like she's going to be a bigger character in the final stretch of the movie than she actually is. But I do feel like she has more lines than other characters.
Yes.
I feel like she should have had a character name other than Ordnance Expert.
Yeah, I agree. So they get Ray on the phone, and they have to keep him on for 60 seconds. And what is it? So Ned's trying everything, and he says, okay, we'll say they have a message from May. And once that happens, then Stallone's just like, oh, is Ned there? And then, yeah,
again, this movie is just like suddenly characters have knowledge that we're just like, how does he know? How does he suddenly know that this is, Trent is just, there to set him up. And I love this because like this scene goes on for what seems like ages. Like they seem to talk on the phone for about 10 minutes, but apparently they've only talked on the phone for 57 seconds when Stallone hangs up.
Yeah. And I like how it just has James Woods yelling out, obviously Ray is exposing him more, saying, did you tell, or do all these people know why the CIA just
kicked out the CIA?
You had a fetish, or whatever he says, that you got your kicks blowing people up, and you never had a code, and then you just have James Woods throwing stuff around. He's telling people not to look at him, and they're like, staring forward.
It's hilarious because like he starts this scene like, I'm totally playing it cool, and then when Ray is initially saying like, put Ned on the phone, like he's like, no, and he's wondering about it, and he looks quite pensive and like, quite thoughtful, and it's like, it feels like this kind of game of cat and mouse of just being like, trying to outthink each other, and then all of a sudden he just goes volcanic and he starts shouting things like, I'll kill you, I'll vaporize your ass, and he's just throwing shit about the place, and it's just like, oh yes, the master criminal that is Ned Trent.
Yeah, who apparently taught Ray everything he knows. It's supposed to be like,
knows how to stay cool in any situation.
Yeah.
It's great stuff. It's great. I like James Woods. Really, again, as much as I love to give any credit to James Woods, he really is what makes this movie.
So the funeral comes up, or at least the obituary, and Ray goes to the funeral for Adrian Hastings, and it ends up not being her because, we didn't see that coming. And
not spoiled by any of the trailers or promotional material off the film.
But then she does appear, to which she says she had to do that, for whatever reason, and he quickly pushes her against the wall, frisks her very sensually.
Because this is part erotic thriller kind of.
And it's coming up. The moment this movie has been leading to, of these two characters that we apparently have been wanting to meet.
for so long. We have longed for them to meet. But before we get to the infamous shower scene, we should talk about one more thing before we get to that, which is more James Woods action of he stops by the funeral as the funeral procession are walking out with the casket, and he waves a gun in a priest's face and says, "Open the fucking casket." Yeah. And then they open the casket and he just sighs and goes, "Oh, bitch." Yeah. And like the confused look on the procession's face. Oh, the unintentional hilarity.
Yeah, and during the funeral, they're talking about this woman, the woman that actually died, and how great she was, and like helping orphans, all this stuff.
That's right. Like all these orphans, all these like Cuban immigrants and stuff like that. Helping them out. Get their start in America. She was a great lady. Was Adrian Hastings. The real, whatever. But again, more hilarity. Yeah. So then we get. So the sex scene is kind of confusing because because of the kind of slightly weird way this movie is edited, sometimes we kind of cut too quickly from things, much like the espresso bomb thing.
Yeah.
And, it feels confusing. So they start making out next to a bed. They then start having sex in a bed. And then I'm not sure if they have sex and then they have sex again in the shower, or how this is all going on. Because
so it shows them in the shower, then they're in the bed wet, and then they're back in the shower or something.
Yeah, well, I know that they're standing next to the bed, then they're in the bed, I think they're standing next to the bed, then they're in the bed, then they're in the shower.
Yeah, and then there's something else, and then it shows them talking in the shower afterwards.
Yes, there's
yeah.
But I get, yes. So that's not the only if you thought that was the only confusing thing about this sex scene, listeners, you're wrong. Because the positions they get into, some very funny positions, that seem to, cause so we get a shot of like Sharon Stone's up against the wall and then Stallone's in front of her. So we're getting like a real loving ass shot from Stallone because that's what Stallone's all about in this time period of his career. But this is the most loving one we've got so far in the season, I think.
Yeah.
But then, because we want to see Sharon Stone's breasts, or one of them, she's kind of standing to the side of him, which suggests he would just be kind of humping the wall, really. Or her leg, maybe.
Yeah.
And then again, because again we want to maximize the kind of key body parts of both of our stars. Again, when they're lying down, again it looks like probably just humping her leg.
Yeah.
Or kind of nearby, because again it looks like an incredibly unnatural position. It's there's some unintentional funniness to it, and it's a very confusing scene. It is in terms of terrible sex scenes, not quite as bad as the infamous Showgirls scene, but it's up there with your classic terrible sex scenes. Also, another one that I feel like should get an honorable mention is the sex scene between Night Owl and the Silk Spectre in Watchmen. That's something.
That's some Leonard Cohen.
Yeah. It is. And then the flames shooting out oh my god.
But that's
the sex scene.
So this one has the key, was it like late 80s sex scene tropes of, which I didn't even know they were tropes, but it's popped up enough because I know it's in Highlander, it's in Lost Boys, it's a bunch of movies where it's like the two people are naked, sitting, facing each other and
Yeah.
like just kind of rubbing or whatever. I don't even know.
Rubbing indiscriminately against each other, Yeah.
But they don't have a good song that you get, in Lost Boys or Highlander.
No, they don't have a good song.
You always need an original song if you're going to have a sex scene like that.
Yeah, no, that's good. I mean, like, you missed out on the very fun sex scene that was in Rapid Fire that did have like an early 90s hard rock song, kind of power ballad. Oh, it was, and obviously we get very loving shots of Stallone's ass here, whereas Rapid Fire was all about very loving shots of Brandon Lee's abs. It was that movie's all about Brandon Lee's abs, and and why not? Man had great abs, so like,
so flaunt them.
And you can hear all about that in a Rapid Fire episode if you've not listened to that, which is a lot of Kyle and I talking about Brandon Lee's abs, and other talk about the movie, but mainly the abs.
And so this scene that was supposed to be the whole build-up, what everything was marketed behind everything. Maybe it's just because we're older now, or maybe it's because there's been so many other kind of sex scenes and things have advanced, you have Cronenberg's Crash or whatever it may be. But yeah, I don't know, just watching this, and we talked about this off air, it was almost one of the boringest parts for me. If I wasn't, doing this for the podcast, I was just watching this. This is when I would have, checked my phone, or like, that's how it felt.
Yeah, it doesn't feel very steamy. It doesn't feel very erotic in any way. It does. And again, it's partly to do with the lack of chemistry, and it's partly to do with just like, it just feels kind of daft, I suppose, as well, of just being kind of like, you spend more of the scene thinking about like, well, that seems like an unnatural position than anything else.
It's like there's the old Seinfeld episode where they're talking, everybody's obsessed with the English Patient.
All right, yeah.
And then Elaine is like, but they do it on tub, or, and she's like, that's not, she's just like breaking it down of how it just doesn't work.
And again, like, we get this whole thing where we get like this kind of post-coital shower scene afterwards, where they're just kind of like, cleaning each other, and you just, again, that just feels kind of boring, and we just get, a bit of exposition or whatever, and you're like, well, this doesn't feel, it just feels like we want more, the camera, wants more naked time with Stallone and Stone. That's really all that scene's there for. We don't need it for any other reason. It's just like, like they've got an allotted amount of minutes that they have to be naked, and then that's that. The one thing I did want to mention while talking about this scene, right? So I found this quote from Stallone on the IMDb trivia section, and because it was just there, I was like, I want to double check, where maybe that quote come from or whatever. So I kind of looked it up, and it's like, and then I found like, it seems to have come from an interview he did with Ain't It Cool News. So it seems like it is actually a legit quote.
Okay.
And I'm sure he said it as if this is like fun story to tell, but does not show Stallone off in the best light. This is the quote. Okay, let it be known, I did not want to do this scene. I didn't want to do this scene because Sharon was not cooperating. We get to the set and she decides not to take her robe off. The director asks only a few of the crew to remain, and she still won't take it off. I promised her I wouldn't take any liberties, so what's the problem? She said, I'm just sick of nudity. I asked her if she could be sick of it in someone else's film. She was having none of it, so I went down to my trailer, brought back a bottle of Black Death vodka that was given to me by Michael Douglas, and after half a dozen shots, we were wet and wild. So, according to this quote, he first shamed her and then got her drunk.
Jeez.
Yeah, not and like I can imagine him like answering this, like puffing on a cigar, recounting it as if it's like a kind of fun tale of how he got his way. But it doesn't really read well, does it?
No, not at all.
Aye, that is, it's a kind of, but sorry, Craig, man, brought the mood down, brought the mood down with crass boorishness. But suppose we should cover the rest of the movie.
Yeah. So the movie that is left, that there's still a good chunk, but surprisingly not.
I know there's like kind of half an hour left in the movie, but like, it kind of all kind of wraps up quite quickly. So we have, she leaves him in the morning, leaving him a note saying, I'm not. Yeah, that's the other thing. He comes out a shower. He comes out, so it seems to suggest that he maybe has another shower because like it's at night. So like when they're having the shower after they had sex, that seems to be at night, but he's having another shower. I'm so confused by it all.
To be a specialist, he really needs to, he
needs
cleanliness.
super clean. So, but anyway, we'll move on from showering.
So he comes out, finds a note that says, I am not a woman that you should trust. And, she's gone. She comes off the elevator and is caught by Ned and his crew and tries to give them a little bit of the slip of saying, I was planning on giving him up to you anyways, and he's on floor 10 or something. 10, but obviously they find out he's on floor 12. So she was trying to help him out, but also save herself. She goes into this bathroom, finds a lady with a cellular phone, slaps her after taking the phone, and then calls them and says they're coming to get you, which he assumes then she betrayed him. So he's upset about that. But, as much as Stallone can be upset about that. And that's when he starts setting up the room with his special skills of explosions.
His specialist skills, yes, indeed. And then, we've pretty much already established that Trent is a real bad guy. He's a big bad villain. But we feel the need to establish it more because he lets a couple of henchmen go into the hotel room and doesn't say anything, doesn't say this guy's probably rigged it to blow somehow, and just lets them kind of investigate the room. And so the phone is off the hook. And so we, as audience members, are clearly it's got something to do with the phone. It's probably once you put the phone back in the cradle, that'll be probably when it explodes, which is exactly what happens. But this was, of all the explosion scenes, I feel like this one was the most hilarious.
Yeah, it takes a very long time.
Because the room explodes and then kind of falls off into the sea in slow motion.
But yeah, only that room, nothing else in the whole hotel.
Well, that's because he does the focus. He knows how to control his explosions.
Yeah.
That's famously you can just detonate a bomb, but control it to such a degree that it only takes out a tiny part. It won't impact the rest of the hotel. So it just impacts this one room that falls off into the sea, and then we get one of those kind of hilarious reaction shots of the henchman falling off into the sea with the room, which looks like kind of bad CGI, the way they've or early kind of effects are.
Well, and there's one henchman that already was in the water, so he falls onto him.
He was blown out the window, and then the other two were still in the room, and they just fall in slow motion into the sea on top of that guy.
And that's it. But it even takes enough time that you're you could just, to the other two henchmen, you could just walk back out. It's not too bad, but then they just stand there for a while as it's
until they fall onto the floor, and then they have to drift off in slow motion. Yeah, they could have run out the room, but again, these henchmen are not.
No.
I mean, they are, even by henchman standards, they're pretty dim. So that's only to be expected. And then we get the other scene that feels like, oh, it's just been fitted in because like it's Stallone, so he has to have like a kind of action man scene. So he beats up some goons, and like I have to say, this scene's kind of worth it because like there is a very funny moment where he throws one of the henchmen into a deep fat fryer.
Yeah, and you just see the guy like bubbling up, going like, screaming, and then he throws a knife into one of them, and
I burst out laughing when he's just like beating up these guys, and then he just like hip tosses this guy into a deep fat fryer. I was like, oh my god,
yeah,
that's some good stuff.
So she's captured, taken to Joe, who she reveals who she is, and Joe says, well, you think my son would have given the order? I'm the one that gives the order. So now she knows she also has to deal with him.
Yes.
Maybe. But
Joe gave the order.
Yeah. But then Ned says he can't have her yet. He wants to hold on to her for a little bit longer so that he can get the guy responsible, and has her call again, or has her contact Ray again.
Yeah.
On the phone to do a meetup, and basically stays on long enough to get, it's a very long drawn out phone conversation. First of all,
like she basically gives him a warning that like,
he's going to get betrayed.
He's going to get set up. There's going to be some sort of setup. So like, yes, it does feel more drawn out than it needs to be. But then many of the phone conversations in the film do feel more drawn out than they need to be fair.
Yeah. So she goes to meet him. They're in the room, or whatever, or she walks into the room. Everybody else is outside, ready to basically bust in. But then the building that she walks into, it blows up, and they're seen. Well, we see them speed away on a speedboat somewhere. Which
again feels like a very Bond moment. That like there's a couple of moments in this film that are just like, well, John Barry's doing the score, so like maybe we should make this like a James Bond adventure, but only for like 2 scenes or 3 scenes.
Yeah. And that's good. I don't know. Again, I mean, I've mentioned it several times, but that's, when you hit that hour mark, it feels like it jumps ship of what it's supposed to be into this new kind of territory. So the Ned he's able to listen to the recording enough to triangulate, that he must be taking the bus, and he's using payphones, and he would only go on like a 25-minute or 25 mile radius.
I was confused. Like, I wrote this down in my notes because I was confused by this. I was like, is there so few bus routes in Miami that you can just immediately triangulate what bus route somebody could, anyway, I suppose we shouldn't, we're near the end of the movie. Well, let's not get too caught up.
We're almost there. So they basically do some searching around. One of the cops says that he has to eat somewhere, so I'm going to look at restaurants or grocery stores. They talk to a guy who's never seen him, but then the delivery kid that we've seen drop off stuff for Stallone before, I guess, divulges the information that, he's seen that guy.
Yeah.
And then they start to basically surround the place after it's assumed that Ray and May have slept together again or something, because he's laying in bed naked and she's getting her clothes back on, saying he's not done yet with dealing with Joe or something.
Yeah. So it seems like they've slept together again, because hot and steamy. Nobody cares.
Yeah. So then they're surrounded, and but he has, Ray obviously has all of his booby-trapped explosions to take care of anything in this whole kind of warehouse area. It's very high-tech. It even needs like his handprint and everything.
Yes.
And if one is set off, then all of them will be set off, but apparently in slow motion and at very not the same times, because all these bombs go off randomly, and enough time that
while we're getting all this at the same time, some of the bombs outside of his warehouse start going off, and the first one that goes off blows up a bomb disposal van, and we get some more James Woods overacting and like he's laughing about the irony of the bomb disposal van being very
nice touch or something.
Yeah, nice touch. And I like as well that our female character, ordnance expert, says, "You're crazy," and it seems redundant for her to say that, because she was literally in the room when he said, "I am the craziest person you will ever meet." I mean, it's been fairly clearly established, not just to the audience, but to your character, that this, and like, she was also in the scene where he was just throwing shit about and being like, "I will kill you, I'll vaporize your ass." I mean, she is very clearly seen in at least 2 scenes prior to this, that this guy's fucking mental, but she's still like, "You're crazy," as if this is a revelation.
Yeah. And in that scene, again, Stallone, even so, all the police here establishes that he is crazy too. So it's not just James Woods himself, but it is said that you are crazy because you were getting pleasure from killing people. And that's why the CIA fired you or whatever.
Yeah, booted you, whatever. But everybody else, all the cops outside are getting blown up left, right, and center, or their vehicles are, because like Ray always knows where good guys are. Like, it doesn't seem like any cops actually die. It just seems like their vehicles get blown up, because again, Ray has magic, only killing the bad guy bombs. And, but James Wood manages to kind of casually stroll through all the bombs going off. And surprise, we get the big confrontation that we've all been waiting for, between Trent and Ray.
They finally find each other after all this time. He has a gun, and obviously he has bomb knowledge of his own, because he
trained Ray, as we've already established a bunch of times.
And he set up a bomb in her cigarette case that is very rarely, I didn't even know about the cigarette case.
The cigarette case, like, it's not like something that's like well established. There is one scene earlier on in the movie where she is at a bar with Tomei, where she asks some people for a cigarette, and we see the cigarette case. But it's not like something that like she's constantly pulling out or anything.
Okay, so it's
just that one scene in the bar, as far as I remember.
Okay, yeah, that's what I thought. So it kind of felt like it was just thrown in out of.
That cigarette case she always keeps on her person.
Yeah, that it was crucial to the, to the story that is like a Chekhov's gun or whatever you want to call it.
She doesn't even really ask for cigarettes that much. Like, it's just that one scene. It's not like because like her character in Basic Instinct, like she's like a regular smoker, and that's like a thing. It's kind of part of her character, part of her, she's always kind of coolly smoking on a cigarette or whatever. But like, or I feel from my vague memory of seeing that years ago. But it's not even like kind of part of her kind of character. I didn't feel like this is like cool smoking lady or cool, don't smoke, kids. But
there's even a random scene where Stallone is smoking a cigar, and it's like the only time you see him smoking.
That's true.
Yeah. I don't know.
I think he was just like, I don't know, like maybe he just had that on set and he was just like, they were just rolling. They just so happened to be rolling. I feel like a lot of this film is just kind of laziness of just kind of like, Stallone was living in Miami at the time. He was just like, I can't be arsed. Like, traveling anywhere to film something. Can you just come to me with something, we'll make it Miami based. And, so like, laziness is the key.
Yeah. He's like, I'm doing my grocery shopping today. Just get some shots of that.
I'll grab the bus for you guys. It's whatever.
So during this whole thing, Trent triggers one of the series of bombs that have already been triggered that are supposed to go off if one of them goes off, but he triggers it. And I mean, it's fun in the sense that the bomb blows him to the side, and then another bomb blows him the other way.
Oh, it's so fun. Like, I laughed out loud in this scene because, like, it's just the way the explosions just buffer him about like a pinball, you know?
And then he lands on the stairs, and then another one like blows up, but doesn't send him everywhere. It just like sends fire to kind of engulf him a little bit, but not really. You just see him on the stairs like kicking around.
Yeah, and then there's still the cigarette case bomb that we have to deal with, and what precise, tense, technical way is this dealt with? It is one of those kind of, obviously we have to have a tense, diffusing moment, much like in a Bond movie, or in like Speed or something, you know, like there's got to be tense, diffusing. What happens, Craig? Tell us what happens.
Well, because they talk about how there's like some mercury thing and you can't change the levels or anything like that. It has to be like a smooth transition. And so it's going to be crazy because he has May lightly handed to him where they have to basically shift the weight and everything perfectly. And then he just throws it.
He just throws it. Oh, what the fuck?
And then they run.
And then we kind of cut to outside, and there's cops, and it all goes into slow motion, and there's like all these kind of slow-mo explosions, and it's supposed to seem real cool, and I was like, it's weird because there's this weird disconnect of being like watching the explosions as they all happen, and it's going into slow motion and all that. And thinking, from a technical standpoint, I'm thinking like, oh, that seems impressive. It must take a real lot of work to do that. But like, as a viewer, I'm not like enthralled by it. I'm not like kind of like, holy shit, you know, or I'm not excited, or I don't feel tense. I don't really feel anything. I'm just kind of congratulating it, of being like, well, that must have taken a lot of work. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people set that up for a long time. That's real something. You know, practical effects, it's pretty good. But that's it.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. I mean, but that's kind of the explosions, you know, throughout the whole movie in general. Again, it's just like, you know, I guess congrats to the production designers and the special effects team and everything.
Yeah, that's true. Well done to the special effects team. Well done to the stunt people, or all the people who rigged the explosions, or lots of real explosions. So, like, well done to all of them. And then, so obviously, you know, they escaped, they're safe, you know, like, much like the story seemed to have ended, you know, when Tomei was killed, you know, but, you know, there's still nearly 45 minutes of movie or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, but surely, you know, like, you know, Trent is dead, and, you know, like, Joe doesn't really mean anything to the plot. So, you know, like, that's, you know, cut to credits, that's the end of the movie, right?
No.
Oh, all right. Yeah, okay. What happens at the end?
We get to have Joe reading a newspaper saying there were 3 deaths. So he's like, oh, thank God they're all dead. And he gets a little package, and he opens it up, and it's May Monroe's kind of, you know, her locket, which had her family and her on it, the picture. And he hears the beeping. So he knows that it's a bomb, and he yells something that I couldn't even make out because of the horrible accent or something.
The horrible accent. So, so basically he sees a paper, and he thanks God. He says, thank you, God. Something like, you're a good God, or, you know, your grace is God, is something like that. And then he hears the beeping, and then he looks up in the sky as if he's still talking to God, and he says, "You bastardo!" And like, again, just the most awful accent you've ever heard in your life. But "you bastardo" was the line.
That's what it was. Okay. There you go. And then you hear the explosion, but you
don't see him die, just like Tomei's death, which is super anticlimactic. This death also super anticlimactic, and again feels kind of unnecessary because Joe doesn't really do anything that affects the plot. Neither does Tomei really either, apart from, like, again, the backstory of, May's parents being killed, which again doesn't necessarily need to be in the movie. But yeah, they don't do anything to affect the plot.
So he asks her, because you see her reaction. She hears the bomb and she's like, okay. Turning back and he says, how do you feel? And she says, better. And then it just shows them kind of driving away from Miami, I guess, in a convertible.
Yeah, driving somewhere else. And what I've ended my notes with, one of the things I've ended my notes with is pay attention to the road. Because like he's got his arm slung around her, bringing her in for a kiss, and like nobody's looking at the road.
And it's busy. You can see that it's very busy.
Oh yeah, no, it's like a freeway, you know, like there's like 3 or 4 lanes. It's like, you know, there's traffic, you know, it's not, and then, that is the end of the movie. And then, probably one of the most successful and enduring things of the movie, happens. We get the Gloria Estefan cover of, Turn the Beat Around, which was one of her biggest hits. And yeah, that's how we end the movie.
Yeah, because that song fits so well with the rest of the tone of the
yes, the cover, the Gloria Estefan's cover of the disco song. Well, it was because, you know, it's Miami, Latino music, you know, like, you know, the music supervisor on the movie, Emilio Estefan, it's really just that beginning song and then, you know, Gloria's song at the end. Otherwise, the music is obviously all just kind of John Barry flip-flopping between doing like neo-noir stuff and doing like Bond shit. Yeah. So yeah, but that is it. Well, that's us covered The Specialist. We hope you have enjoyed this episode. Just leaves me to say thanks again, Craig, for continuing on this journey with me, and we will continue on next week, where we will be looking at Judge Dredd.
I'm excited.
And last thing before we head on out, just leaves me to remind you, listener, if you want to rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast, you should do that on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, or wherever you stick podcasts into your ears. But until next week, see ya.